Being born in a mafia family means to be marked for life. The mafia probably want to kill me, want to harm me, want to harm my family. My life is a life of constant watching, of constant carefulness, and thanks to luck, thanks to God's help, I'm still alive.
Welcome back to the Mafia's Web podcast. I'm Stephen Drill. In the podcast so far, we've spoken to undercover cops, mafia experts, and the prosecutors who are taking them on. In this episode, I'm taking you into the heart of the mafia, how they operate, and how they turn their own children into killers.
I lived as a baby soldier, a child soldier, trained since childhood in a very violent way.
That's the frontline testimony of Luigi Bonaventura. He's better placed than anyone to explain the mafia's power and their deadly tactics. His childhood was soaked in mafia blood. He was forced to do things he would rather forget, but he turned his back on his violent family and became an informant. He was a trailblazer who broke the mafia's code of silence. That damn wall has started to crack with other high-profile informers, or pentito, as they are called in Italian, coming forward. Luigi and his son Nemo spoke to me from a secret location in Italy. Luigi doesn't speak English, so the voice you will hear in this podcast is Nemo's, translating his father's words. He will do that for the rest of this podcast, but he'll also reveal how his life has been changed by the mafia. Luigi's testimonies have so far put away 500 members of the 'Ndrangheta, the world's most powerful mafia clan. And that is not the kind of thing that makes you popular.
My life is a life of constant watching, of constant carefulness, with a lot of sacrifice and waivers. And thanks to luck, thanks to God's help, I'm still alive.
So let's go back to where it all began. Luigi was the son of a very powerful 'Ndrangheta figure. His life was mapped out, and he wasn't headed for a sandstone university, unless he was going there to carry out a hit.
I was born in 1971 in Crotone in Calabria, in a very historic and well-known 'Ndrangheta family, mafia family called Luigi Bonaventura. Being born in a mafia family means to be marked for life, to have your destiny chosen by someone else, to be meant to be a mafioso, a crime man. I lived as a baby soldier, a child soldier, trained since childhood in a very violent way. My mother really treated me with deep love. My dad instead was a violent man because of the more violent and the old context he lived in, and because he also was trained as a child soldier.
I drove through the Crotone region when I visited Calabria. Its coastline is beautiful. It's probably good enough to have a few hotels and become a tourist mecca. But the towns are crumbling. It reminded me of some of the pictures I've seen of Havana in Cuba. The buildings were once grand, but they're faded monuments. There are no trees in sight in the towns, and not much evidence of the shops being open. It would be a hard place to grow up for anyone, but brutal for Luigi. The mafia is a way of life here, part of the fabric of the community. Even church figures are in the mafia, Luigi says. No one trusts anyone, and Luigi was also ordered to kill.
I was not properly a spy, but I knew what was my work, even managing the pre-existence business of the family in that city. You were always pushed to be violent, to act violently, to think in a crime way. I've grown with an 'Ndranghetistic education, with a criminal education, let's say. And yes, I was told I was pledged to avenge the death of a guy with my same age, brutally killed.
Luigi did not want to talk further about the murder. It clearly still has an effect on him. But it was part of his life in the 'Ndrangheta. He knew nothing else. His family knew nothing else. And his friends knew nothing else. There was a careful, methodical plan to turn children into killers and men into murderers.
I was teach to kill, yes, to kill animals and to watch violent movies to get yourself uh, comfortable with violence and death.
A common tactic among mafia families is to get children to shoot pigs. Pigs are a common theme in the mafia, as you might remember. They were also used to eat the bodies of human murder victims. By shooting pigs, the mafia can desensitize children. They are able to take away the feeling and the emotion from the act of murder. The mafia is a dangerous game, and there are continual turf wars. Italy itself is a relatively new concept. It only became a country in 1871. In Calabria, different regions speak different dialects. There is a distrust of the government, and there is a distrust of rival clans. Luigi was sent to be a spy on other Calabrian regions and to learn their dialects.
When I was more than a boy, a teenager, at 17 years old, I was sent to various regions in northern Italy in advance to patrol, let's say, to watch and understand how the music flowed there, how was the situation, and where and how my family could work in those cities. To infiltrate in a city, to colonize and then establish Andrina, a new clan, let's say, is the way that Ndrangheta works in a global level, in a global way. When I say Andrina, do you understand what is it?
And what's the Nandrina? Is that like part of Nandrangada, or is it a different sort of a smaller part of the mafia?
It's like a clan, we can say, of Ndrangheta. It's a detachment of Ndrangheta in that territory to begin the presence, the colonization.
Yeah, so they start with small, like a small group, and then that gets bigger, and then the next group gets bigger, and so they take different parts of the territory, I suppose, and control different villages because a lot of the villages there are quite small.
Yes, then it depends about the city and the village because you can have Drine at a country in the mountains, but you can have Drine in a capital city.
That knowledge of different clans and different dialects made him an important link man for his mafia family. He could organise deals and negotiate cooperation for criminal enterprises. I can understand how Luigi was drafted into his life of crime, but I could not work out why and how he would leave the mafia. Was he influenced by his family, his friends? All he knew was bloodshed and crime.
I started to realize and came to a realization then the difference between my family and the other ones when I was 15 years old circa. But I always perceived something strange and unusual in my life. I was not like the other children. Of course, not all families in Crotone were part of the mafia. The majority of them were simple, normal families with no business with mafia. I was trained to be comfortable with violence, to assemble guns, to practice shooting in order to shoot at other time.
That flash of conscience became louder and louder. It wasn't quite a road to Damascus moment. He didn't change overnight like St. Paul, but it happened. And like Paul's conversion, it had an impact on Italy's history.
I had realized that I was not fighting in the right faction, to the right part, as I was taught. And so I decided to change this to because that was not the type of culture that I wanted to give to my sons, to my family, because you have to know that Drangheta is a subculture, so it has its laws, its culture, and it's a culture of violence and of it's a criminal culture. and so this was not the culture I want to give to my sons. And I really wanted also to improve society, not to destroy it. And so I realized that was what I was taught was not real, was not true. So I understand that I have to face Drangheta, to face my past, to give future to my family. And that what really pushed me was the love for my wife, for my children, and so this pushed me to do the right thing for the future of my beloveds. I have dealt and helped more than 14 procura, department of anti-mafia, anti-crime. If I say procura, do you understand?
Like prosecutor, yeah. Like Nicola Gatteri is a procurator.
Yes, 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 yes. And I have indeed make possible a lot of operations, a lot of blitzes and arrests, and I have taken part of various process like Rinascita Scott with Nicola Gratteri.
Luigi would have had a wealthy life if he had stayed in the mafia. He would have been able to have all the money in the world and the power over life and death of some people. Here, he gives some insight into the way the families operate and the class system that is involved.
Let's remember that there are some that Ndrangheta is a classistic society.
Yeah, so like there's like a elite or rich people, and then different levels. Is that?
Yes, yes, yes. So we have different type of families in Drangheta. You can have the more basic one, let's say, where your children are educated to kill, to be narcos. But we have also families that have more high ambitions, that want to deal with politics, with industry, with finance, and so they educate their children to be politics, to be financiers, to be businessmen.
Yeah. So there's different types or different classes, like you say, different classes of Ndrangheta.
Yes, yeah. It's always the same one Ndrangheta, but inside of it there is these levels, these different types of families, and so different type of education for their children.
But while there are classes in the mafia, it's not a caste system like India. They are good businessmen. They are open to new ideas and ambition.
So all families had the possibility to climb, let's say, the social classes, and so even the more common family can, if it is good in what it does, can climb the society, so can make to the high ranks of Ndrangheta. And Drangheta is a sounds strange, but it's a very meritocratic society. So if you are good in what you do, you have the the support, let's say that, to improve your situation in the ranks of Drangheta.
Luigi's decision was his own, but he was not the only one affected. His son Nemo, who has been doing the translating for him on this podcast, also had a changed life. You see, Nemo would have been expected to become a mafioso, just like his father. Not just expected, he would have had no choice, unless he took the same risk as his dad did. Nemo will now share his own story in his own words.
I'm not a mafioso now. In all the aspect, not just the simple criminal aspect, but I mean like infiltration in politics. I'm not one of them. Do you understand this? I'm grateful to my father for this.
Yeah, because what would your life have been like? It would be quite different.
Okay, so this sounds a little bit strange, so try to understand what I'm saying. Probably I would have been in the high ranks of Ndrangheta. Uh, So I would have studied, learned. Maybe I could have a job in high finances in business works.
There would have been some perks of staying with the Mafia. Financially, life would have been much easier. Nemo would have been promoted into a comfortable existence. He would have been in the Mafia's upper class, and in his generation, he would have gone on to higher education, and he could have had a respectable position in society while also being part of the Mafia.
And maybe probably I had to go to very prestigious university to study and to not seem like andrangetista, to be an andrangetista but not to seem like, to seem normal, to seem well educated, to seem a common businessman. Okay, but in reality, I clearly had would have some links with Ndrangheta, and so my life will be, in a certain sense, more easy, more privileged, maybe. But of course, it will be no, it would have been not a right life, not a legal one. Legal in the expect to not seem a mafioso, to not look that's a mafioso, okay? But of course with some criminal business.
Nemo lives a modest life with his family now at that secret location. But if he was still in the Mafia, he would have been respected. He would have led a double life. His Mafia links would have been hidden, except for those in the know.
Esattamente. E che nei palazzi e nei salotti di potere, dove c'è l'ammasso 'ndrangheta, lì saprebbero sicuramente chi tu sei
Okay.
e della famiglia potente che vieni.
And while the common people would have not understood that I am a mafioso, I'm a dranghetista, in the right place, in the palaces, in the how can I say, headquarters room, in the power room, okay, where there is something called massoneria or massondrangheta. That means that level of ndrangheta where the mafia and other powers like church, like states, like industrials are in business with ndrangheta.
Oh, so they all come together and you'd be in that room.
Yes, yes. There is a sort of metaphoric room where all the decisions of the organization are made, and there is Drangheta and there is other powers very important in the states, and so those people would have known that I'm a Dranghetista, but not a common Dranghetista, but a Masson Dranghetista, like Massone.
Yeah, oh, the Mason, yeah, the Masonics, yeah, that was.
Yes, not quite that, but very, very similar. Because Drangheta is even a secret society in a certain sense. Of course, I can. When I said to you that this seems a little bit strange, is because you don't expect from a mafioso to live maybe like a politics man, like a businessman with suit and tie.
Yeah, it's changed. They're hidden. They could be being a politician normally, and they're a politician as well as Ndrangheta.
Yes, there is no. 'Ndrangheta is not the type of mafia with the typical Italian hat on the head, the lupara on in their hands, and speaking strange languages. 'Ndrangheta is a lot is more refined, maybe the word high status, let's say that. And so, even if I would have a lot of money, a lot of power, being a drunkardist, now I know that that was not the right life, that was not a legal one life, and the life that I'm doing now, even if is maybe more difficult, is a more honest one, a real gained one, if you understand. without hurting anyone.
Becoming an informant comes with the risk of being killed. And one of the only ways to avoid that is to live effectively a life of never-ending lockdown. Normal activities are off limits for Luigi and Nemo and their family. You can hear Luigi talking in the background as his son speaks for the both of them.
Okay, and speaking as Nemo Bonaventura, but also as Luigi Bonaventura and all the protects, what happened that my life now is in danger, we can say. I'm grateful, I repeat, for the choice of my father, but my life is in danger because the mafia probably want to kill me, want to harm my family, and in the other side we have the state that should protect us but do not protect us in the proper way. We have not such a protection, and we have a lot of limitation, like we can't go to university, we can go to work, we can't go to vote, we can't go doing a lot of things that a normal citizen would do.
Really, because you're worried about your safety?
Yes, this is the, how can I say, the official. These are what they said. Okay, what they say. In reality,
Oh, the police said to you to be careful, did they? Or
they say that in order to be careful, we should not go to work, we should not go to university, we should not do that, do that. But this is a little bit a paradox, because we have no armed protection, we have no scorta, no patrolling outside our house. So this is a protection that is a little bit false, a little bit, how can I say, not real protection, a little bit vain, I don't know.
Luigi has a warning for Australians. The mafia here is thriving. You may not see it, but it's there working in the shadows. His son is again translating his words.
There is a real strong presence, there is a real strong presence of Ndrangheta in Australia, with a lot of drina and a lot of locali. That is another uh, terms to call this type of detachment of Ndrangheta, locali. That means like it is a new organization from zero in that territory, but is always linked to the one unique organization in Calabria, in Italy. And of course, the Australian Drangheta is strong, and um, is strong, is independent, as I said, because of the locale. No, not independent. I've done a mistake. Not independent, but have a sort of grade of autonomy. But the Australian Drangheta is always the Italian one. Is always the Calabrian one. So even if there are people that seems not to be linked with Italy, that's always the same Drangheta. And that I personally, I Luigi Bonaventura personally, have not dealt with Australia directly, but I dealt with some people that have their affairs, have their contacts in Australia.
The Ndrangheta, the biggest mafia gang, seem almost untouchable. They have endless rivers of cash, up to $100 billion a year. But it takes bravery to take them on. Luigi says more people need to turn witnesses on the mafia.
We want to highlight that the real number one tool against weapon against mafia, against Drangheta, is the collaboratori of giustizia. The collaboratori are people born inside mafia, grown up inside mafia, that at a certain point of their life they decided not to be in mafia anymore and to collaborate with justice, with state, like my father, like Luigi Bonaventura. And so they are the the one real tool against mafia, because they fear this primarily. And we have to support, and the state have to support and secure the collaboratori and their families, because their families are the one in danger, because they are the one on whom the mafia are willing to harm, are willing to strike, to kick, in order to kick the collaboratore.
But they want more backup from the authorities. There is very little protection, they say, for them now.
And so they have to be protected more, to have more a more secure life. And so this, because also they are they live in a heroic way, we can say, because supporting uh, your relative that is doing this choice is not a simple choice, because supporting them means that you have to, in a certain sense, you have also to collaborate in a certain sense, because you are supporting the choice of your dad, of your brother, of your uncle to collaborate. So supporting the choice means that you also are against mafia.
Yes, yeah. So you have to choose.
Yes, it's a real clear choice. And we want also to highlight that my father, Luigi Bonaventura, and also my family, as an no-profit organization, that association called Sostenitori dei Collaboratori e Testimoni di Giustizia. That means supporters of collaboratori and witnesses of justice.
Supporto a tutti quelli che denunciano le mafie e la corruzione nel mondo.
And its goal is to support everyone that in the world wants to denounce, to fight against mafias, against 'ndrangheta, because, as we said, it's very important to support that people, because they are the very tool against mafia.
Luigi says that it's not just up to the cops to fix the mafia problems. Yes, they need brave informants, exceptional police, but they also need the public to demand that the politicians do more.
È la vera piaga, è un vero pericolo per ogni Stato in qualsiasi parte del mondo. Quindi la lotta alle mafie e alla corruzione appartiene ad ogni cittadino del mondo.
And last message, I really push the whole world, the all citizens in the world, that to fight mafia, because mafia is not an Italian problem, is not a Calabrian problem, is not an Italian problem, it's a worldwide problem. Everyone in the world is in danger for mafia. We have seen the power of mafia in Australia. So everyone has to put some effort to fight them, because if we don't, we'll be took over. The mafia will take over.
So there are cracks in the mafia if you can find people in the right places. But there was also another way of getting into the mafia. There was something that turned thousands of criminals into informers without them even realising it. So what, if anything, can stop the mafia? Join us in the next episode for the sting of the century. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. This podcast was hosted by me, Stephen Drill, and produced by Andrea Teese Evanson.